an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering One Piece, episodes 87, 88, and 89. In these episodes, we have got a lot going on. I don't really know where to start with the description of what is happening here, other than, like, we've got the usual giant Luffy showdown. And I have a confession to make to you guys after the theme song. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you so much to Bernadette for commissioning this episode and also for being extremely patient while I worked through tech issues restarting my computer, because my computer has been turned off for a couple weeks while I was away getting married. So, guys, I want to talk about something that I feel weirdly afraid to admit to you all, and I'm gonna just tell you the truth. I watched these episodes dubbed. I watched the first one with subtitles. I've watched everything with subtitles thus far and have rewatched them when I'm with Owen with dubs, because he prefers to be able to, like, do things while we're watching it and not have to constantly be completely engaged with the screen. And this time, I watched the first episode with subtitles, and I don't know if it's like having been away from the show, and then coming back to it cold. And also, I watched the show right after watching Weathering with You, which is an anime film, and I can't remember the director's name, that just got commissioned by Candace. And so it felt also like a bit of a shock to the system. I watched all of Weathering with You reading subtitles. So I don't know what happened. I feel like almost my brain burnt out. Like I reached a point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, keeping track of what's happening, because what's happening visually is so insane. You guys, it's bonkers. And just holding that in my mind while also trying to make sense of subtitles that do not always translate properly. I feel like I can't do it well consistently. So, and I'll be honest, I just feel like I have a better sense of the characters in the dub. I think it's because the translation can be so awkward sometimes that the attitude behind a line won't really land for me, because I'm not understanding exactly what they're supposed to be feeling. And it'll seem like it's meant to be sort of goofy. And then when I watch it in dub, it was clearly supposed to be cool. Like they were a badass. But it doesn't seem like they're a badass in that line when you read it in the sub. So I'm starting to feel like I'm going for the dub more. And I know that, like, everybody was intense about me doing this with subtitles only. And I'm not completely, like, switching camps here. But I am not sure I agree with the assessment that the dub is no good. I don't know if there's a different, like, dub that was worse and I'm watching the one on Netflix, if that's like a different version of it, or if it gets worse later, or if there are just particular episodes that are really bad. But so far, the dub, I just feel like it's easier for me to connect with everything. And I feel sort of like I'm a real fucking filthy casual for that, but I am a filthy casual, so also fine. Gabriella says, gasp, blasphemy. Roy says, I am the big funny dub supporter. Is it funny? F-U-N-I? Funny? How do you say that? I'm not sure what that means. Kyle says, are we at the new dub company at this point? Funimation. Oh, okay. Dub redid all the early stuff too. Kyle says, that's no fun. Future generations should have to make it through the 4Kids dub like the rest of us. Oh, so I am watching a different dub is the one that you guys don't like the old one, or am I liking the one that you all don't like? Because I'm very curious about that. Also, there is, I think, a bit of a disconnect, and I've said this before. I think if you're just more into anime in general, it might be easier for you to like make this transition when you're used to reading subs a lot and you are in this sort of like illustrative style and the wackiness of it. While obviously One Piece is wacky even by anime standards, but I kind of wonder if it's not just because this is all so new to me that I kind of can't handle everything. So that might be part of it as well. Roy says there were 2 dubs. The first one 4Kids did censored a lot to make it a Saturday morning cartoon. Then they lost the rights and Funimation redid everything and are the ones dubbing it from here on out. Funimation's dub is impeccable. Kyle says the old one was the one with the rap. Oh God, the rap. Okay. This is all making a lot more sense now. So how would you guys feel about me going forward with the dub? Like, I feel like because also the dub pulls back a little on some of the weird voice tics, and I don't mean like character tics, because the goofy laughter that is very specific to certain characters, or, you know, the me, like that's all still there. I'm talking about like the screechiness of certain things, or the like that is still there, but it will be done in a way that doesn't feel quite so bonkers and distracting to me. I just don't know whether or not it's going to affect the way you guys feel about my review of the show. Do you know what I mean? I don't want it to be like you guys think, well, she thinks that's because she watched the dub, but if she watched it with the subs, then she probably wouldn't be like feeling this way about it. I don't want it to be something that like changes the impression I'm getting from the show itself. I think it's improving my understanding, but I don't know if that will be true forever because this is such a long-running show. Gabriella says, we all have our preferences. There's nothing wrong with the Funimation dub. I'm just a purist who believes on watching shows as they were intended, but it's absolutely your call. And see, that's the thing, Gabriella. Is it, like, watching shows as they were intended is all well and good when you know the language, but when you're getting a subtitle, that's not how it was intended. The weird translation you're getting is not how they intended it to be translated necessarily. So you're still getting an altered experience that isn't actually, you know what I mean? So like, there's no way if this is not your first language, it's never gonna be as it was intended. You're gonna have to put it through something that will change it. That's just like the nature of consuming this as a second language. Bernadette says the dub sub thing in general is just a religious war. Roy says, I'm in the minority probably, but I think continuing with the dub is a great idea. Holding myself back from fighting the good fight for dubs. This is my first time here. Roy, please feel free to get scrappy. I'm not going to be mad at you for that. Honestly, I'm fine. Because like, I was saying this to you guys, and I feel like this has been hinting at for a while, that there have been times where I've gone back with the dub with Owen and been like, oh, and kind of got it more on the rewatch. And I was like, well, maybe it's because it's a rewatch. And now I'm like, I don't think so. I think it was the dub that helped me out. And, you know, just generally, like, there are certain personality tics that I, like, watching it with the dub helped me understand how much of a dodo bird Luffy is really supposed to be. Because sometimes I wasn't sure if the translation was making him sound stupider than he is, because it's just slightly broken. And I was like, all right, maybe I'm judging this because the translation isn't quite on point. And then watching the dub, I'm like, oh no, he's supposed to be a fucking imbecile sometimes. Like, that's part of him. And it helped a lot to know that that was meant to be an aspect of his character. And it's not necessarily he's just an idiot all the time, but like there are a lot of times where he is, and I wasn't quite getting that sometimes. Kyle says, do whatever helps you enjoy the show. Modern anime dubs are pretty solid and don't mess with the story like they used to. That was really my main question. And I will say, I told you guys I watched the first episode with the subs. I started the second episode with the subs, went back and started it over with dub. And every line in that dub was identical to the sub almost entirely. Like when there were little broken bits where things didn't quite line up, those were fixed for the dub, but otherwise it was exactly the same. So I was like, why do people hate this so much? So I think that that's not an issue, but I'm not positive that it's not an issue. So I just wanted to sort of check with y'all. Roy says, absolutely agree with you. All translations aren't the original, and changing things to make more sense to your new language/culture is what works best. Gabriella says, we will enjoy your thoughts regardless of how you watch it. Okay. Well, I may go back and forth, y'all. I may do the thing that I did where I'm like rewinding it, watching it with a sub, watching it with I may go back and forth because there are going to be times where I'm going to wonder probably, is that actually how that was written? But I just don't want to do something that it feels like I'm totally betraying the spirit of covering the show. And I feel like I had heard that there's a real like sort of culture war about whether watching it with dubs is like fair or not. And I am sorry if anybody listening to this is like, I really didn't have any interest in having this debate yet again because I'm super sick of it. Sorry, I'm new. I haven't had this debate before. So for me, this is all new. And if I were to have this debate, I wouldn't have had a stake in it because I wouldn't understand or know in either direction. And this is the only show that I've ever come up against this question. So there it is. Let's see. Bernadette says, I personally am a sub fan because I tend not to like the voice actor choices and feel that they change the characters. Okay, I could see that. But in general, I think you're right, and you have no experience in anime, and it might be a bit much. Gus says, I don't like the dub, but it's not that the VAs are bad. I just don't vibe with Luffy's voice, and the USA cartoon language that dubs always seem to inject into scenes. Interesting. Luffy's voice is a little odd. I will give you that, Gus. And I really understand not liking that. It doesn't bother me, but it is different enough that when I first watched it with dub, I was like, what? That being said, it's fine with me if you watch it dub to review it, as long as you don't have to watch a dub. Like if you were reacting to it, it's all good. Oh, as long as I don't have to watch a dub. Got it. We can correct you or have you watch specific episodes subbed if there are any major differences or really good voice acting. Okay, that's fair. Gabriella says, only request is that we ever do live watch, I might ask for episodes sub beyond no dub. Okay. So, and I don't think that there's been a live watch commissioned at all. Everything that's been a special episode, it's been a wannabe where one of you joins with me for the recording. So I don't know if that'll even ever be a thing, but since this show is going to run on for quite a while, I suspect it may come up. Roy says, I honestly feel like Luffy's voice is odd in both languages because he's just a hard character to voice without making him sound strange. Yeah, that is also a thing that he is an odd character just overall. So, and correct me guys, is he voiced by a woman in the sub version, in the original version? Because it's clearly a woman doing his voice in the dubbed version, right? And I know that that's like frequently a thing for women to do the voices of boys in animated stuff, like Bart Simpson's voiced by a woman, I think, things like that. But I'm just curious for my own sake. Bernadette says, not yet, spoiler alert, it will come up. Okay, got it. So, all right, I just wanted to talk about that. I'm sorry again for anybody who wasn't particularly interested in this debate, but this is a big deal. Like, this is something that people are paying me to watch. So I just want to be sure that I do it justice and don't disappoint the people who are paying me. Like, y'all have final say. So I will do what you ask me to do. It's fine. Voiced by a woman in both, yes. And Kyle says, dubs before like the 2010s were very hit or miss, and the anime community has a lot of baggage about the kind of shenanigans companies like 4Kids pulled to get anime on TV. But now the process has been mostly worked out, and it's done mostly by streaming companies who don't have to worry about TV rules. That makes a lot of sense, Kyle. I mean, that's a thing, I think, in any fandom. There will be baggage that you carry on, even though something's not really an issue anymore. So I can understand how that's like something that kind of gets a bit triggery for people, even though it's not really a problem the way that it used to be. I look like I froze. Can you guys still hear and see me? Yikes. These are the... I hesitate to call them final showdowns because, as we have seen, every major character villain from this episode has been brought back at some point. They reappear, and it's sort of, you know, inevitable that we are going to be seeing Walpole again. But this is the moment where Luffy takes him down in terms of the island itself, the country being without this king. I hope he doesn't make his way back here and oppress all of these people again. You know, they all, if you have eaten a devil fruit, can't swim, but everybody just seems to have a really lucky landing and not wind up in the ocean. And I would really enjoy it if we just had one villain land straight up in the water and just sink like a stone and drown. I would find that rather funny. The kind of thing where maybe like they hit a boat and it seems like it's fine, but then they bounce off the boat into the water would also be, you know. And the fight here, it's so great, you guys. I was talking to Candace. Some of you know Candace because she works a lot with all of the Spoil Me commissions and whatnot. And I was talking to her about One Piece, and she said that she's never watched it. One, because it's ugly, and she's kind of a snob that way. And I can agree with her. Like, this isn't a super attractive animation style. I'm not mad at that. Two, she said that a lot of the fans that she has encountered, like, because she is a big weeb, in various Discords, Reddits, and whatnot, have been so aggressive about it that it sort of turned her off to it, which I definitely know how that can be with some fandoms, and that has 100% happened to me with things that I wound up liking, but everybody was so hardcore that it turned me off right away, and I had to go in kicking and screaming a little bit. So I was talking to her about the show and why I like it. And I was trying to explain to her what is going on. And I sent her an image of the witch doctor. What is her name again, guys? And Candace just wrote back in all caps, "Oh my God, Jesus Christ, I'm dying." And I'm then telling her about the various villains. And as I'm watching, oh my God, I'm looking at a new villain who has an afro, and he can remove his afro and throw it at people, and another afro grows instantly in its place to pull off and throw. They're covered in static and stick to you and won't come off. Oh, it's fine. He just got eaten by his boss, who turned into a house. He ate his 2 henchmen and pooped them out, and now they're 1 henchman with 2 heads and double the abilities. Smart. And she just wrote back, "What the fuck?" And honestly, guys, what the fuck? This show just keeps... It's not even anymore about the devil fruit ability, which... that is still wild. Like, he is doing crazy abilities. But it's the variations on it, the different, like, techniques that can come from each devil fruit. They don't feel like they have anything to do necessarily with the original power itself. They just, like, you know what I mean? So this whole thing with his henchmen, I genuinely was like, he's eating his own guys. Like, what is he doing? And it turns out that it's basically, I'm going to process them into something better. But we'll get to that in a second. So we have Luffy basically being like, I cannot wait to beat the shit out of you because I had a sick friend with me before and I couldn't do what I wanted to do. But now they're inside and it's fine. And I can just go to town. And honestly, I was also very excited about this. You know, Luffy's not the only one. And he is talking about them still as if they're pirates. And it takes a minute for him to realize, wait, he's not a pirate. And then that there's like a certain personal offense that he takes when he realizes they were faking that. And I don't know why, but this really hit for me. It's not even like something. Let's talk about the pirate thing in this show. So I have mentioned before how sort of the weirdness of the romanticized pirate in this universe. And I think we can all agree, pirates in the One Piece universe are not pirates like in our universe. Pirate seems to be an all-purpose show, like all-purpose word on this show for adventurer, right? Like it's because pirates in our world are people who smash and grab from other ships, often killing and sometimes taking people prisoner as slaves. That's a literal, like, that's the whole thing. And there are pirates in this universe who do that. But Luffy seems to look upon them as if they're betraying the name of pirate, when in fact they're doing, like, genuine pirate shit. And Luffy and his pals are not. They are just adventuring. They're just sailors. So it constantly, like, tripped me up when people would, like, talk about how noble and, you know, like Luffy here is talking about basically the Jolly Roger flag is like a representation of how you're willing to give your life up. And, like, super not. No, it isn't in any way. Like, that's not actually true. Like, if we want to take it that way for this universe, I am willing to accept that. Or is it supposed to be that Luffy is just kind of under a mistaken impression himself? I don't think that feels like what the writers are doing, though. It doesn't seem as if we're supposed to be watching this going, oh, Luffy, sweetie, that's not it at all. It feels like we're supposed to be agreeing with his assessment here. So I am going to go ahead and when he says pirate, replace that word mentally, because clearly what I keep sort of wondering if it's going to be addressed, we're 80 episodes into this now, it's not going to happen. This is just a different thing in this universe. And that's fine. But I don't know what my cat's doing out there, but if you heard that, apologies. I'm concerned. But yeah, so I just wanted to mention that because especially here, like, I have had sort of an issue with the use of pirate the whole time. But here, when he makes this big speech about what the flag means, and then we have the flashbacks where the Doctor is talking to Chopper and, like, talking about what great people pirates are. And I was like, all right, obviously this doesn't mean the thing that it means for us. Yeah, okay. Roy says pirate in One Piece basically just means you're a sailing group of people who defy the Marines / do whatever you want. That feels right. And so adventurer. I'll go with that. It's like how Samus Aran from Metroid is a bounty hunter. Kyle, baby, I don't know how to tell you this, but I have no idea what Oh, God. Gus says, pirate has a very different meaning in the One Piece world. Can't get into it much at the moment because spoilers, though. Okay, noted. So anyway, Luffy takes personal offense at the fact that they were faking being pirates. And later on, when they are trying to destroy the flag on the top of the castle, he gets very salty about that also. And puts himself very much in the line of fire and is just like, you know, holding on to the actual like flagpole itself so that when it breaks, it's still right there. And it's just like, you can't destroy what this represents. And setting aside the meaning of pirate and making it into just adventurer, I feel like I get it a lot more. Also, it turns out that Chopper has buried the Doctor's body in front of the castle. I think he says in front of it, right? So basically, this castle is like a monument to his mentor slash friend slash guardian, which gives everything a little bit more meaning in terms of like wanting to fight for the castle itself, which I kind of appreciated. I thought that that added a certain something and was a pretty smart move in terms of, you know, plot device. I am somebody who I don't believe in the same sorts of things that people who have certain religious beliefs do. So I don't have the same attachment to the concept of a gravesite because I just don't feel like if I die, wherever you bury me, I'm not going to fucking care. I genuinely don't. Flush me down the toilet, cremate me and flush me. I don't care. But, you know, I have grown to understand how much this means to people and that it's just a basic sign of respect in general. And, you know, that really worked in my opinion. Also, I want to mention, somebody emailed me, and forgive me, it's been so long now because I took this vacation, but somebody emailed me about the Doctor, the one who raised Chopper. Forgive me, I can't remember his name. Kureha is the witch doctor whom I love. But this person emailed and told me that in the original manga, that Doctor was way more of a dickhead. And basically, my interpretation of him as being like borderline abusive and not really a great guy is accurate to the original source material. And that it was like the show softening him, but keeping some of the aspects of his personality that are kind of like, wow, what the fuck, guy? So I was just sort of interested in that because it's one of those things where the show doesn't seem to be afraid of letting people be bad guys when they were originally bad guys. They seem fine with that. But this particular character, evidently they were not, you know, wanting to let him be as ambiguous as he was in the original. I just found that sort of interesting that this was the spot where they really, like, it's this and the eating his own leg from Sanji's storyline. What is there anything else, guys, that you maybe didn't mention at the time, but that you know were changed significantly? I just always find it kind of compelling to see where we decide something has gotten too dark and try and lighten it up, because there are times where I sort of feel like that really isn't the thing that you should be worried about. There's a lot of other much darker shit that's going on here. Why is this what you decided to take a stand on and change? And for many reasons, it might just be because of the way the plot winds up going. But I thought that was interesting, and it also was kind of funny because later on in these episodes, Chopper does the decoy thing that the Doctor did to him to Luffy. Or no, he does it to Sanji, because Sanji is sitting there with these afros stuck to him. And they light them on fire. And I did kind of enjoy that callback. And having Chopper do the thing to Sanji. I thought that was kind of funny. I do want to ask what the fucking point of the afro, like, weapon is meant to be. Because all it is that they stick to you. And they wind up having to then shoot a fire arrow in order to make them any sort of actual threat. Otherwise, it's just a weird thing that you can't get off, which doesn't actually feel like it's harming you. And Sanji repeatedly just says something like, it's gross. But honestly, he could have kept fighting like an afro. If any of you have ever smooshed an afro, you know it's all air. So he could have kept kicking with that afro stuck to his leg, and his kicks would have been just as effective as they had been. There would be no, are they meant to like do anything else that I missed or that wasn't like taken advantage of during this particular fight? Because I just found that to be a sort of nothing power. It doesn't seem like there's anything. And other powers, it's like, because that guy was meant to have eaten a devil fruit to be able to pull the afros off and whatnot, right? Is that correct? But there's more than one way to use those powers, and I feel like we only kind of saw the one, and so I'm not sure if I'm missing something there, but it just seemed very pointless. Let's see. Roy says, I always saw the stuff with Hiri something where Oda saw the character as funny, but came off as unlikable when he is meant to be more sympathetic, hence lightening him for adaptations. Okay. Gus says, in the manga, Hiriluk was more of a dick to the townspeople. He was a thief before he decided to be a doctor, doctors in quotes. I think he burned down a house or something. Ooh. I think his interactions with Chopper were about the same, still a dick. I might have forgotten some, though. Roy, I could see that. Like, this is a thing that happens just with comedy aging as well. There will be things that are treated as hilarious, and then looking back on them, you're like, ooh, no. Like, or that you just decide, like, as a writer, the way that apparently Oda did, oh, that doesn't work as well as I thought it did in my head. I found this really funny because I knew what he was meant to be intending by this. But if you don't know that, it doesn't really work. So, okay, I can accept that. So, like I said, this dude, the whole thing with these fire arrows becomes a moot point pretty quickly because then Walpole just eats the two of them. And I should mention that before he actually does eat them, he turns into this giant metal fortress sort of house thing. Guys, him dancing back and forth as this house in front of Luffy and Sanji is the funniest thing. I cannot describe it in any other way than prancing. He is the size of a small car, but his ankles and feet are pretty much the same size. And he's just prancing back and forth, kind of being like trying to be like, whoa, look at me. But when you're watching it, it feels a lot less threatening than I think he wants it to be. They are definitely impressed at the fact that he is turning into a house, but it's just a moment of like, what are you? And I think what's supposed to be going on is that his dancing back and forth is part of him turning the two of them into one being. And he says, come out miraculous union. And the door of the house that he has become opens, and out comes this nightmare combo creature who has two heads. Chess Marimo. Sure. Why not? I am assuming that these two cannot be separated now, which honestly, that seems like a really bad deal. If I were them, I would be agitated over this being done to me. I thought they were just being eaten so that he could like absorb their powers, and that was already fucked up. But he creates a whole new being And then I am assuming they would just be left like that to live out their lives if things were to go his way. Which, how do you stay on someone's side after they do that to you? Like, they come out and they say, I'm the most powerful fighter, warrior on Drum Island when they walk out of the door. But there's a part of me that feels like you've got to act like you're on board in front of the enemy. You've got to act like a cohesive unit and you're on the same team. Once the battle's won, though, then you turn to your king and you're like, really? What the fuck, man? Seriously? So I would really enjoy seeing that confrontation later on where they just kind of go, I cannot believe you fucking did this to me. I'm leaving, the two of them going off together. So, Gus says it's not even a devil fruit power, the afro thing. It's just how his hair grows. Okay, now I'm kind of like squicked by that a little bit. There's something about that feels vaguely problematic to me in a way that I'm not sure is like legitimate, but I'm sort of side-eyeing. All right. So as all of this is going on, Chopper is like getting into it. And he is using his, like, main jacked human form. But later on, he takes this pill, and it turns out that there are other, like, what's the word? Oh my God, guys. Tell me. You know what I'm talking about. He can take on other forms. Formulations? Is that the right word? Configurations, maybe, is what I want. And I thought that was kind of interesting. It only lasts for, like, I think he says 3 minutes. So it's not exactly a thing that you can take a ton of advantage of because it's very limited. And it's a bit of a shame. Like, it'd be kind of cool if this was something that you could make a permanent thing. But having it be a temporary thing also puts a ceiling on it, which I always appreciate there being a bit of a limit. I feel like if you just leave things totally open, that often doesn't work out later in the story. It'll feel like a great idea at the time, and then you'll wind up kind of backed into a corner story-wise because you haven't created any actual stakes since they could do anything. Roy says, it always felt to me like they'd done that before and Wapol can reverse it by eating them again. Oh, that's interesting. That didn't occur to me, but I'm not against it. I mean, the door is still there if they want to just walk into it. Well, it's not by the end of this because Wapol winds up doing a thing that makes him lean and mean. He loses a bunch of weight, but immediately says that he's hungry, to which I'm like, honestly, relatable. Losing a bunch of weight and then being like, but I'm starving though. Yeah. Anyway, the whole thing with Chopper is really fun because there's a combo of things going on. Chopper can use this pill to create different formulations of his body to fight with. And he sees Luffy using his like stretching powers and he asks Sanji, what's the deal with this guy? And Sanji says he's a rubber man. And when Chopper asks what that is, Sanji looks delighted to say, a monster. Because I think Sanji recognizes just what that's going to mean to this little guy. And I really enjoyed that because honestly, that's not entirely inaccurate. The people who eat devil fruits are low-key kind of monsters. They turn into weird shit, I mean, there is no reason why a reindeer who can transform his body to be more humanoid is any more of a monster than a human who can transform his body into a weird fortress house thing. So I'm just all about everybody being like, we're not saying you're not a monster, Chopper, but we're saying we're friends with other people who are also monsters, so it's really fine. Not trying to invalidate your feelings of like how you're identifying in the world, but saying that, sure, identify like that, and it's not a problem for us. It's fine. I really enjoyed that a lot. And also, Chopper gets called a friend by Luffy when he tries to say, I don't need friends, I can still fight without friends. And Luffy chimes in with like, excuse me though, hi, I'm a friend. But later on, when Chopper takes the, what is it called? A rumble ball? Rumble ball. Thank you, Roy. Luffy cannot get enough of these transformations that Chopper is doing, and honestly, I loved that so much. Later on, after the fighting has like sort of wound down, Luffy is just yelling at Chopper like, oh my god, you were amazing, that was amazing. And Chopper basically does the equivalent of like, oh shucks. And I'm really here for it. I love the unmitigated enthusiasm that Luffy always has for people doing bonkers shit. It doesn't matter if they're on his side or not. He has the same reaction to bad guys doing wild stuff. It's not like, it's just for him, the principle of the thing is just like, well, that's awesome. Like, that's objectively awesome. Why do I, like, sure, fighting them is going to be harder now, but rad, right? And honestly, I love that. That's one of my favorite things about his personality, I think. So I'm kind of jumping around here because the fighting, you guys understand how this goes. When we get to these long fight scenes, there isn't a whole lot like beat by beat that is really necessary to talk about. So I'm going to jump back into the village and what's going on with Vivi and Zoro and Usopp. First of all, I love what winds up happening with their conversation. This is so good, you guys. I wasn't sure that they were gonna like do it the way they did, and then they did, and it was so excellent. So we've got our buddy, first of all, who went down, and I can't remember his name, guys, the one who turns into a bull. And they are finally able to get some physicians to attend him. The 20 doctors, 20 medics, what do they call them again? There's like a title for them as a group. I love how they walk around with their hands up like they just washed their hands and have gloves on like they're just about to go into surgery. Such a weirdly creepy thing. I feel like that these guys have a sort of sinister aspect that would be extremely effective to be used as like a specter in some movie with ghosts. Like, you constantly see a being that's standing with their hands up like this. It's just off-putting, you know? They wouldn't even have to be wearing gloves, but if they were, that would also be creepy. But if that's just an unnatural way for somebody to stand, and you have to wonder, what does that mean? What are they about to do? I really found it creepy. So they basically are like, we didn't want to just serve the king. He made us. We understand that you guys don't trust us, but please let us help. We will be able to make this dude better. And as they are dealing with this guy, Vivi is talking with Usopp and Zoro about how our friends are up there on the mountain. We don't know what's happening with them. They may be trapped. We had this whole, avalanche thing, and we don't know what's going on. We need to get up there and help them. And Usopp has this big speech where he's like, Vivi, you are just carrying too much on your shoulders. You have to calm down and think about how capable our friends are. And they will be fine without our help because they are badasses and we don't need to worry. And she gets pulled into this for a second and is like, wow, okay, having faith in your friends. I guess that's a good point, Usopp. You're pretty wise, actually. And a part of me got suckered in as well. I'm not going to lie. There was a bit of me that was like, okay, I see that actually. And I mean, we do know that Luffy has never been beaten. So to a degree, just as a viewer, that is the point of view that I have, you know, but Zoro steps in, as she says, "You're very wise," and says, he's full of crap. He's just afraid to go up there. And I was like, duh. Of course that's what it is. Oh my God, I can't believe I didn't think of that. Of course. And to his credit, Usopp does not deny it for a second. He doesn't try to be like, no, I really just have faith in my friends. He immediately is like, I heard there was like monsters and shit up there. You know what? I do sort of respect how quickly he caves on that. That's fair. But I loved this moment so much because this is something that I think all of us do. And sometimes it is legitimate, but we can rationalize action in any direction a lot of the time and make it seem like what choice we're making is actually like for the good of everyone, when in fact it's a deeply satisfying or deeply selfish, satisfying maybe, but deeply selfish thing we're choosing. And you can just tack on all kinds of rationalizations as to why it's the more logical thing to do, why you're keeping the big picture in mind, and long term, this will be better for everyone. But really, what it comes down to frequently is this will be better for me. This will be easier for me. This will be more beneficial for me in some way. So I've really enjoyed it, especially because while he is saying all of this to Vivi, there's this like swell of music that sort of is meant to imply how inspiring this moment is and how like, you know, and I love when the show does things like that makes it sort of like they're in on the joke. You know, I really get just so giggly when there's a record scratch and the inspiring music stops and Zoro's like, bullshit. That was good. I really, I loved that so much. So they have to figure out a way to get up there. And it turns out, like, they're thinking they're going to have to hike. But there is this, like, rope track that has a sort of equivalent of, like, I'm trying to think of a gondola. Is that really the right word? It's a sort of, like, hanging basket kind of... I keep wanting to say like a ski lift, but you have to operate it with cycling, right? Like that's how it's sort of powered. And, this dude who can turn into a bison, it's a bison, right? Not a bull. He insists on coming, and basically what it comes down to for him is like, I will die to make sure that Wapol doesn't go back into power, because sincerely, fuck that guy. And so we get this like journey that is more and more arduous, but it is easier in general than following the trail up, and you know, and the whole like journey, it doesn't take very long, but there is a concern about whether or not they're overloaded. We've got, his name is Dalton, right, and Usopp is off to the side like yelling at that person who's doing, who is on the machine like doing the actual peddling? Is that Zoro? I don't remember. But we get to see in this moment all of the things that Wapol went through, or not Wapol, that Dalton went through at the hands of Wapol and his men. And this is probably the most like explicit torture scene that we've watched in this show. Like, it's pretty... It's not graphic in that there's like a ton of blood or anything, but it's just a lot of him getting the shit beat out of him when he's absolutely helpless and is backed into a corner in a way that feels a lot more sadistic than other things that we've watched. So it was really upsetting. And Dalton is given like the opportunity to get out of this by kneeling in front of the king, apologizing, and, you know, basically groveling. And they eventually sort of get him to cave, and he doesn't actually, but, you know, by threatening to toss him into the ocean. I think that he's like worried about, or no, that's what happens to one of the doctors, right? I'm getting them mixed up. But the whole thing with Dalton, I just found like much more upsetting than I expected. I didn't think we were going to see it. I thought it was all going to remain implication. And I wasn't quite ready for it. And there's something about, they put this reddish tint over all the frames that are his memories. And I find color work in things like this very affecting. So that always works on me. Roy says a lot of fans aren't fans of Walpole, but I think he serves his purpose excellently. He's funny, but he's also a perfect symbol of how monarchies can put the absolute worst people into power and how they can use that power for selfishness and cruelty. Yeah, and like, look, I get not being a big fan of Walpole because he is like ridiculous in a way that doesn't feel purposeful, but I don't like, look, guys, nobody is going to be bad to me in comparison with Don Krieg. He just sucked so much, and we have yet to come up against another villain that I dislike as much as him. And I don't mean dislike in terms of them being a bad person, because there are other characters who are worse people. But he is just a boring watch. And Walpole, at least he's not that. You know, Don Krieg, it was basically like, I'm impenetrable and my whole body is covered in weapons. Whoop-de-doo. Walpole can turn into a house, eat people, make them into one person, and then they walk out the front door of his body. That's wild and much more interesting. And then he can like drop a bunch of weight and slide through cracks because he's skinny now. Can we talk about the moment where there's this giant 7-barrel gun that he can't wait to use, and he finally gets up there and pulls the trigger, and it just, because there are birds that have built nests in there and are living in there now. I love this so much. It didn't occur to me. Oh my God, that's right. Roy says he eats himself. How did I forget that? I swear to God, guys, this dude, it's because it's too much. My brain couldn't handle it, and I like made myself forget. But it didn't occur to me how Walpole's castle has been like low-key desecrated because the birds were like laying a nest on the door, so they just left the door open. And so Walpole walks in and is just like, what the fuck? What did you do to my place? And I found that hilarious. It's just something that it doesn't feel like something that should matter to a guy like that. And for some reason, him getting really like salty over it, I enjoyed a great deal. So let's see. I'm trying to make sure that I stay within time because I spent so long talking about the dub thing that I've only got about 7 minutes left here. But a lot of this isn't really like I said, it's all the fight. So I don't feel the need to talk about every aspect of this. When he pulls this trigger and nothing happens, there is like a reaction, right? I'm trying to watch this part because we jump back and forth so much here between Dalton and what's going on in the castle. Dalton is covered in blood here and bandages, and he like pulls out all of this dynamite. When we get to the castle, and once I get inside, lay on the ground, and is essentially saying, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that he's going to be a suicide bomber. Is that correct? Like that he's planning on running in and having this on his person and blowing himself up. But it doesn't like come to this. There's this moment where Walpole is distracted and looking out through this hole that he made with the gun. Luffy, he says something about how Luffy let his guard down. Oh no, it's not the gun that he did it with. It's because his tongue transformed into a cannon. That's right. I do enjoy that. I will say that. Luffy fighting him, watching the tongue transform, and Luffy himself, I mean, we've seen him be very enthusiastic about people's abilities, but there is a true moment of horror in his eyes there, where he just really looks like, what the fuck did I get myself into? Oh my God. And that was, one of the more relatable moments. He says something about how Luffy let his guard down. Meantime, Luffy has snuck up behind him and is just like, look who's talking. Grabs him by the shoulders and winds his legs up and his arms in a way, he calls it Gum Gum Bow Gun. I don't understand. I think what we were supposed to see is that he makes his body into a sort of crossbow, but he's not holding on to anything to give him the leverage and the velocity. So I didn't really understand how this was supposed to work. It's the first time you've ever seen him do this. I would like to know, guys, and I'm sure that to a point you can't tell me completely the answer to this, but how many times do we see Luffy do something completely new with his rubber man powers? And how many times do we see him repeat something that we've watched him do before? Because I am curious if there is any sort of limit on the variety of weapons he can make himself into. And if there, and what I mean by that is there a limit for the writers? Because clearly Oda does not give a shit, and there's no limit as far as Oda is concerned. What I mean is, in the story, does he have a set point that he can reach, and then something would have to happen for him to get another ability? Like one of those rumble balls, for example? Or is it the nature of his ability that he can make it do anything at any time? I don't think I'm mistaken in that we haven't seen this move before, though. So, yeah, he basically shoots the king up through one of the turrets so that his head has gone, right through the conical roof up there. And he's staring at the flag and getting more and more enraged at the sight of it, because it's a combination of what they've actually done to his castle and the fact that they are flying a different flag over the castle as well, which he feels is like the utmost in disrespect. So while he's busy getting offended over that, there is this, I'm curious, guys, about what winds up happening because I feel like I may have missed something here. He gets projected, I guess is the word I want, right through the roof. He is stuck there. He's staring at the flag. And then we cut to a flashback of, the Doctor and Chopper, and all the things that they got up to. When we come back from the flashback, it's just Luffy who climbs up there onto the roof and stands there talking about how, or does he talk about it? I think it was maybe Chopper who says the Drum Kingdom was defeated by the skull. It might be Chopper that's saying that. And Walpole isn't there anymore. The roof is still damaged and there's a big hole and Luffy's just standing there on the wreckage. But Walpole is no longer jammed into the roof. And I don't, like, what is it that happens to him? Did we actually see where he went? I hate this moment at the end, y'all, where Usopp calls poor Chopper a monster. And Chopper goes running away. And when Luffy goes up to Usopp and punches him and is like, what the fuck, man? That was the friend that I was telling you about, the new friend. Usopp's response is, that thing? And I was just like, Usopp, can you just please, like, read the room, man? Don't call him a thing in front of everybody. And it ends with Luffy chasing Chopper down, yelling, "You're my friend," which I think is meant to be like a sort of reflection of the earlier chase where he was trying to catch him and eat him. But I just feel so bad for Chopper constantly being at the, like, whim of people just talking shit about him that I couldn't find it funny anymore. I was just like, "Aw, man, Usopp, what did you do?" Gus says he's standing on a different spire, Luffy is. Oh, okay, so at the end of this, when they're all acting like the Drum Kingdom is defeated, the king is just stuck in a roof. Nothing more has happened to him. Is that correct? So what the hell then? They haven't beaten him. He's just stuck. You put him in any situation after this. You try and arrest him, for example. He'll eat his way out, won't he? Like, that is not going to be a problem for him, I wouldn't think. So why are they all so celebratory here? It does not feel like they did anything, really. This is a guy that you have to kill. You know, it really is. And there's a moment when Chopper is remembering the doctor telling him that, like, human life is precious, and Chopper is sort of asking himself whether certain people deserve to live or die because of this conversation that they had. And you guys know my opinion on this. As far as I am concerned, like, I am not a fan of capital punishment because the state is not to be trusted at all on determining who should live or die. However, I do think that there are people the world would be better off without. And I don't think that that's even, like, something that would be a really gray area judgment call. There are people that I don't think deserve to be alive anymore after the things they've done. And so anytime we have this, like, well, do they deserve to die thing, unless this person has been, there's an element to what they've been doing that feels coerced or, you know, misunderstood, usually it doesn't really hit for me. We haven't had any of the villains actually die on this show, as far as I can remember. Except, well, I was gonna say, Fishman. What's his face? Arlong. But does he? He does, right? Did he die? I think he was dead. We saw his body laying sort of sightlessly on the ground. But there's a part of me that feels like I remember then finding out that he was still alive somehow. Oh, Gus says Luffy catapults him into the top of a spire, then he catapults himself into the top of a different spire, then Gum Gum bazookas him away. Okay, I thought I remembered him flying out, because that was what I was saying at the start of this, is that, you know, can we just watch him drown? But when I was rewatching this, I don't see that moment happen, or it's at least done really quickly. So, okay, thank you. Because I was like, did I just like invent that whole thing in my head? Oh my God. Roy says this, and the entire time Walpole is blubbering and offering Luffy to make him Vice King. I loved that so much. The Vice King thing. That was a moment where I rewound because I didn't understand what he was saying exactly. And when because I heard the Vice, and I was like, Vice, what are you talking about? And when I rewound and was like, Vice King, I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. I would love to see how that would actually, like, if somebody were sincere about that, how could that ever work? It would just never. Okay. It skipped over. When I was like doing the recap, I was scrolling through the flashbacks that Chopper is having, but the reason I missed it is because what Luffy is doing, where he's gearing up to throw this man off of the roof, is intercut with all of the flashbacks. So they're all part of the same thing. I'll make you Vice King. Oh, God. So yeah, bazooka. And then just propels him into the air and he goes flying away. And that is the end of that guy. What happened to his henchmen? Are they still around? I can't even remember how that went down. I'm sorry, guys. There's so much that goes on this episode. And I honestly did get kind of distracted by Dalton's storyline because it was just more upsetting than I was recalling. But yeah, so this is the wrap on Drum Island, basically. Like, Nami by the end of this is getting better. And I, of course, have to mention that Nami she lent her coat to Luffy because he was freezing, and he destroys it in this fight, and she tells him that it's no big deal, he can just pay her back for it at her usual 300% interest rate. And that is a good bit. I am just always delighted when we return to Nami being incredibly greedy. You know, it's just very fun for me because I've always been sort of like worried that as we continue on with certain characters, we're gonna want to make them like more likable in a way that erases some of their quirks. And I have been a little bit concerned about that happening with Nami, but I really like that it hasn't, at least so far. She's still just as much of a stone cold bitch, and it's great. Roy says, I'm going to guess that the henchmen get arrested. Okay. That's fine. We'll go with that. I really would like to see if they ever get separated, though. All right. Well, that is the end of those 3 episodes. This is I was ordered to watch these 3 by, I believe, Gabriella emailed me the schedule. I think the next one is just 2, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm going to double check. And, yeah, that's everything. I'm over time, so I really do have to go. But thank you guys again for bearing with me, starting late, watching dubs, all of that. Appreciate you all very much. Thank you, Bernadette, for commissioning this one. And until next time, y'all. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.